Hello everyone, and welcome back to StarRupture. Real quick, just wanted to give a quick tip regarding how to handle multiple inputs. Here we have a basic smelter. You can see we're just bringing this over from like 5 different extractors, and these make around 60 ore per minute. So I'm of course splitting these in 3 different lanes to try not to saturate the ore or to make things low, but you can see that one of the lines here are saturated, so I could probably split this better. But looking over here, these 2 smelters, they are being split because they will never be saturated. These here will take around, if I remember correctly, 60 ore per minute. Because basically what to do is like, what's the input per cycle divided by this number. This is 1 multiplied by 60 seconds, then you have the consumption per minute, and then you see it's 60. And over here, this little guy is 240 items per minute. But the first rail is actually 120 items per minute. So you can run on the first rail 2 smelters. And when we come here, this is making rods. Rods are pretty much the same thing, but you can run 4 different machines because they consume 30 bars per minute. But once we get here, and let me show you what this does, this makes ammo. This little compact setup sitting right by my door, by my main base, and right by my, if you know what that is, you know what that is. I'm not gonna be spoiling you. But this here makes ammo. And you already see that the ratio here is very different. It makes 15 per cycle, on a 6-second cycle, but these numbers here are very, very different. And if you run the calculations, you'll notice that even a T2 rail is saturated by one of these machines. And I'm running 3 of these machines, so of course this will not be enough. And I'm only using a single line to bring in the basic materials and the rods. So this is going to be super saturated. I would need like a dedicated line for both of those inputs and for each of these machines. This here is not enough. But how did I manage to craft so much heavy ammo if the setup is so horrible? Well, you guessed correctly. I just let this running, even if it's bad. This game is not really exactly like Satisfactory or Factorio. You do not need perfect rail systems. You do not need perfect ratios and all of that. You can just leave and go explore, so I do not need this ammo a whole lot. However, I'm not being attacked and all that, and this is early access. Whenever we get the need to be deploying defense towers, you can see I didn't even focus on unlocking it yet because my bases are never attacked, so I do not need to focus on this. However, if this changes, and it could change in a glimpse of an eye on a single update, and of course, pumping a lot of ammo would probably be required. So let's have a look on setups I took more seriously. This one here already has a single line for each one of the inputs, and I'm staggering the rails here using different height. If you do not know how to do that, you need to learn how to do that right freaking now. My first tip is to press Z looking at an object so you can copy it, so you do not need to press B and select a rail or anything. You can just look at an object and press Z. Also, you can see my drone is being launched automatically. You can achieve that by pressing Ask Options and using the Build Drone options here. This is very cryptic. But basically, the button mode allow you to, every time you want your drone, you press C to launch it. Remember mode will use your last option. If you last built something or destroyed something, demolished something using the drone, it will relaunch the drone when you toggle building mode or when you toggle the construction mode on. And always will always launch your drone. So I use remember because sometimes I'm just like destroying stuff via first person, but most of the time I'm using the drone. So this adapts to my playstyle at that point in time. So you can press Z looking at something and launch the drone here if you have that. And you can look at the bottom bar to check all the key bindings or all the commands you can do for an object. I super recommend that because, for example, you can right click and it changes the model, or there's an alternative variant for a block. So this here is a bigger foundation. This is good so you can align it to certain machines. I think this one is aligned, but there are some machines that will not be aligned with the single model here. So for these rails, what you can do is you just press Y to Z lock in case you want. This locks the height of your rail. You can also press T to lock the location so you can look around without moving away the blueprint, and you can press middle click, and this is the secret sauce. All of this I was taught on the stream by viewers because I didn't know, like veteran players who play tested the game. Thank you for your tips, because I did not notice that you can actually do this. I mean, if you look at the model of this rail, you can see it has like a little post underneath it. So like for sure there's something here, but I did not know you can do this. With that information, you can do something like this. Like I'm using height. Always use height to stagger your different lines for a single machine. That way you can use multiple import ports instead of putting everything in a single import port. Moving on to my pride and joy here, this is the system that makes me really happy. This is basically how it's comprised. You can see this machine has 3 inputs, You can do that with 2 inputs or 4 inputs. You can use the same system. You just use that splitter, how is that called? Tri-rail? The rail modulator tree, but I call it a 3-rail or tri-rail splitter. So you just add as many as you need for one input. You add one of these, are those called multi-rail trees. This way, they will not conflict with each other on the main line. Also, I just noticed this here was disconnected. And you can see I use the same technique here over at the mega presses. I keep calling them mass presses. I use the same exact technique. It's just repetition and it works super fine. And this is max throughput. You can do this, of course, only if you require. You can calculate ratios and all of that. But if you do not care for ratios and you want to just look cool or don't know what you want to do, you can just do this. Of course, the way it works, if it's not super obvious, you have the main line for a resource. And here I'm not bringing resource by rails. I'm bringing resources from the cargo system, the cargo transfer. These are cargo receivers. I'm sending them away. I'm grabbing items. Let's see what this line is. This line is actually stabilizer. So somewhere in my factory, this is being sent out. It's just like similar a little bit to factorial robots. And this here is receiving that cargo. Then it goes to this line. You can see this is the stabilizer line. Then it keeps going forward and forward and forward. And this is just a splitter. I guess this looks way more like factorial than you see on StarRupture, because there's nothing wrong with using these rail connectors and making maybe 1 or 2 lines. You do not need all ports. Like I said, sometimes you look into these recipes and some of them are very long and take very little resources. It's very likely, like just looking at here over my head, it's very likely 1 or 2 lines would make do for this recipe here. Unfortunately, I'm having a little rail shortage on this base, so I cannot demonstrate really as fast as this could be. But you can see it's working pretty fine. And basically what this is doing is making impellers and then sending them away using these dispatcher. And these here are the contract receivers, so they just receive the cargo and distribute to, I think those 20 or something, orbital cargo launchers. And you can see as well, I'm having 3 inputs here, but I'm not really caring about, oh my god, full throughput. And I'm just merging these lines into a single one because these guys can be pretty slow. And I don't think I have ever saturated this line. So for this quick build demonstration here, imagine you had like 4 inputs. Using this just blank simulator here, we can then use this tri-rail at maximum height. And you'll notice that here I used a variant of this mega foundry here, or this mega press. If you right click, you can use it 4 wide or 5 wide. The 5 wide aligns with a lot better in case you want to make it look good. But the 4 wide, of course, is good for a compact place. You can see I've used the 4 wide here and the 5 wide here. So they will look a little different. So let's copy over and bring this guy over. You can place it wherever you want. You can then use the rail modulator to bring these lines in. Then we could do the next line for the next machine. Bring the main line forward. Now we can split them off into the actual ports. You will have a problem without the 5 rail, like I'm having here, where one of the either the first or the last port you have to do shenanigans to input, but you can use the first line and patch it straight in without the tri-rail there. It's just like doing cable management in your PC. If you want to keep your sanity, you're gonna have to make some concessions. Otherwise, you can spend more money, or in the case of StarRupture, you can spend more time unlocking better tech. And remember to connect your final lines into the outputs. this gives you 4 lines of full throughput for each one of the resources. You do not need that all times, you do not need that every time, but in case you want to do something fast and hard, you can use this design, because it took me like a day and a half to figure out I could just do it this way. And it works so much better and is easy to build. Once blueprints are in, if we get a blueprint system, and I hope we do, we can just copy this and use it for whatever setups we might want. And for a quick tip, in case your game starts lagging towards the mid or late game, all of my base is on a single grid. So my base started lagging when building things. I don't know if I will be able to show this here, but you can see, yeah, you can see the game is hitching. This isn't exactly normal for the game. The game runs pretty smooth. But especially when I build over a platform, the game gets pretty laggy. You can see even when I destroy things, the game lags. This has to do with the platforms, because if I build without platforms or I destroy something that is not on a platform, the game doesn't lag. So if you want to recover your save file and prevent it from being so laggy, I would recommend using these guys to segment your base and then cut off different sections or different ramps. For example, this here connects to this whole thing, which is basically a base of its own, and then you can see other ramps there. You can do disconnections, or you can do certain things to isolate grids and make the games lag a little bit less. If you have rail connections between the different grids, they'll all be connected. That's why you're gonna need to use these guys and then disconnect their platforms and do them in their own power grid and all of that until the game gets optimized. If you really want to keep things smooth, I would really recommend to do that. I already segmented a little bit of some parts of the base, so it lags less, but I still need to isolate this and that grid because they are causing the biggest lag for sure. Hope this is helpful. In case you liked or in case it helped, like, share, subscribe, that help out the channel a lot. Bye bye.